This demonstration video has been prepared by Synaptic Advisory Partners LLC in response to GCERC RFQ number 20341825Q00004. The recording includes a structured walkthrough of the proposed Salesforce-based grants management solution, highlighting each functional capability aligned to GCERC's performance work statement. This format ensures clarity, transparency, and alignment with GCERC's evaluation requirements. As you may know, Salesforce has been recognized by the QSMO as a top pick for grants management solution, as shown here on the QSMO website. We are sharing two pre-recorded videos originally created for QSMO to provide an efficient, low-cost demonstration in line with your guidance. Together, they total about 60 minutes, well within the 90-minute limit, and are fully aligned with QSMO compliance standards. For our purposes, the grant officer, Peter, begins on his home screen, having already started creating the initial funding program. When he tabs over to the funding program pipeline, we see an example of how Peter can manage the numerous programs he must administer. A significant challenge for customers today is that every grant program is unique, varying in scope, objectives, eligibility, performance goals, and so on. Within the funding program, Salesforce equips Peter with a toolkit for creating and administering various types of programs more effectively, starting with what we call the configurator. This tool helps business users like Peter manage complex requirements without IT assistance. This same process can be applied to any other phase of the grant process. Here, a grant program is configured to reflect the funding and spending plan. It captures funding program details such as grant type and program timeline, as well as program objectives, eligibility, and review criteria. By recording this structured information during program configuration, the system can prevent downstream errors. During the application phase, applicants can clearly see if their application aligns with the timeline and expenditures of program activity through automation, and similarly throughout post-award reporting. Once Peter completes all the sections, he simply clicks the Submit Program Package button, and the grant program configuration is sent to the solicitation team for approval. Now the program enters a multi-tiered approval process, ensuring that legal and executive stakeholders are involved in the publishing process for each grant program. When all approvals are granted, the grant program is ready to go live. Upon initiating the grant program, it is published to the grantee portal, where applicants can view the details and submit their applications. An additional step in the development of the funding program is that all grant programs must be uniquely identified in the Catalog of Federal Domestic Assistance, or CFVA, now known as Assistance Listings. Salesforce simplifies the setup and use of integrations with existing services such as SAM.gov and Grants.gov to automatically request your program's identifier. This reduces implementation time and complexity, as the process automatically includes information already populated in your grant program. Once your program's identifier has been assigned, it will be automatically added to the program record, minimizing manual data entry and ensuring the program is properly identified. Previously, while developing the program package, Peter used the built-in configurator to define various eligibility criteria and evaluation factors. As the grant officer, Peter has the ability to drill down even further to build a robust review process for both internal and external reviewers. Instructions entered into the evaluation requirement sections can be exported into an evaluation workbook for reviewers. Specific merit review factors can be created, and particular scoring systems can be established. Once completed, reviews can be generated for each application, so Peter only had to set up the evaluation process once. While the grant is active, Peter collects and organizes requests for additional information. The system tracks each request to resolution from a variety of channels. On a single screen, Peter uses the #1 ranked customer service platform to review, categorize, and publish requests. Once published, Salesforce's real-time workflows, designed to fast-track interactions between people and systems, notify the grantees. On the portal, our grantee navigates to the funding program and reviews the published responses. John, our applicant, has completed and submitted an application for grant funding. Upon submittal, he received an automated email notification verifying the receipt of his application. Peter, the grant officer, has logged in to review his workload for the day and notices reviews pending for the application that was submitted by John. In our example, we have an intake and eligibility review. The types of reviews, such as merit, budget, and risk reviews, are easily configured based on customer requirements. Additionally, the order and assignment of these reviews may be configured. Peter opens the funding request and begins familiarizing himself with the information that was captured during the application process. Leveraging Salesforce AI capabilities, we are presented with a predicted rating for John's organization based on past interactions and the current application data. The attributes that are most influential in this score are presented with a suggested improvement to look at the training and outreach commitment of the applicant. This is something we will keep in mind as we continue our review of the application. Peter proceeds to complete the initial reviews, which in part consists of validating various documents that have been included with the application package. On the right-hand side of the screen, Peter may look at the documents that were attached to the application as he goes through the review item list. As he is reviewing the documents, he notices a training plan, which was the factor that can positively impact the predicted rating. He continues reviewing the additional items, and once validated, Peter marks review as passed. Peter wants to ensure the training plan information is reflected appropriately and updates the information on the application to indicate the organization is committed to a training program. The new rating is immediately updated with this information. If Peter had encountered any non-compliant aspects of the application, such as missing or incomplete documents, he is able to take action from within Salesforce by sending an email using a predefined template. Once a template is selected, it may be edited to include additional details and previewed before sending. In our case, we are going to continue with our application as if it is compliant. Now that the initial reviews have been completed, Peter begins the process to assign the panel members to review the application. In this case, the required number of panel members has been set to 3, so Peter begins adding reviewers. Brenda is selected as the panel chair. Upon selection, information is presented to show another review she is currently assigned with a general idea of the workload. Peter believes this workload is acceptable, so proceeds to add her to the panel. Peter proceeds to select 2 additional members. Once Peter is satisfied with his selection, he marks the current status to panelist assigned. This enables Peter to generate the reviews for each of the panel members. With the current configuration, there are 3 dates that may be assigned, where only 1 is required. This is configurable based on customer requirements. Once the assignments are made and the reviews have been generated based on the scheduled dates, the panel receives notifications to begin their process. The panel review is underway and Brenda, as the panel chair, logs in and sees the list of her pending reviews in addition to a notification. She opens the task and navigates to the review as the panel chair. Brenda begins the review, which consists of evaluating various factors related to the project benefits, technical merit, and any perceived risks. All the factors and ratings were configured when the funding program was created and have been reviewed by all the panel members. When Brenda begins her review, she can see the panel members' ratings and comments for each of the factors, as she provides her own rating and comments. Risk factors have been incorporated in this particular example during the panel review. Again, the evaluation factors, review types, scoring, and ordering of these reviews may be configured to meet the customer's business process. Upon completion, Brenda can see the scores for the reviews. In this case, the scoring was weighted based on an equal percentage across of the factors, but is easily configured based customer requirements. Peter, our grant officer, begins to assess all of the review data to determine how to move forward. He sees that the panel review has been completed and can review the analysis of the panel reviews with the embedded analytics available in the Salesforce platform. At this point, the award will move towards final approval. When an applicant's grant request is approved, the system can automatically send an email notification and generate a draft grant agreement. This saves time and streamlines the process for the grant officer, as the key information from the request is automatically copied over to the agreement. The grant officer can then review the draft, make any necessary changes, and submit it for approval. During the review, the agency applies a provisional rate for indirect costs until a final rate is negotiated and approved. Once the funds availability check is completed, the agreement can be sent to the applicant for signing. As time passes, the status of the agreement can be refreshed to show any updates, including details of the applicant's signature. On the screen, a description of the agreement and any special terms can also be viewed. To complete the process, the agency will sign the agreement and send congressional notifications to the relevant parties. By automating much of the process and storing structured data in the system, grant officers can focus on more important aspects of the grant lifecycle. When an agreement moves to the awarded status, the grant officer can request the recipient's banking details to ensure timely payments. This can be done easily by clicking a button, which will securely display the request in the portal for the recipient to provide. As the recipient enters their banking information, sensitive data can be masked to protect their privacy. Only users with appropriate system permissions will be able to access the full account number, with the last 4 digits displayed for verification purposes. Once the recipient enters their banking details, the page will automatically refresh to display the updated information. The system also updates the page to show relevant analytics and project details. The system's contextual display feature allows for only relevant components to appear at the right stage in the grant lifecycle, streamlining the process for the grant officer and recipient alike. The Hope Village community in Detroit, Michigan, applied for a Sustainable Infrastructure Improvement grant to revitalize their community with energy-efficient buildings. However, after undergoing a panel review, their scores were deemed too low due to a lack of internal capacity to manage a project of that scale. As a result, their application was unfortunately disqualified. An automated email was sent to the applicant to notify them of their unsuccessful application. All interactions, whether automated or not, are recorded in the system for easy tracking and auditing of applications. Once all applications have been reviewed, the funding opportunity can be moved to the award phase. The grant officer can then publish the award recipients and unsuccessful applicants on the grantor webpage and integrate this information with grants.gov, all with the click of a button. This streamlined process saves time and increases efficiency. John, our grantee, has received an award and provided his department's banking information. Now he can manage all aspects of the payment process for the state of Virginia in one place through the grantee portal. Typically, this process would be disconnected, with reimbursement payment requests being entered in a separate system. However, on the project record, Salesforce's digital process automation tools guide grantees through the reimbursement payment request, using information previously stored in the system about the grantee to pre-populate inputs. The submitted request is reviewed to ensure that any matching requirements are met, and tasks are tied to the request to prevent any work outside the project's scope without processing an amendment to the grant. Referencing the information on the left, Peter completes the checklist and selects Approved on the toggle. This will submit a request in the financial system for a funds availability check. If funds are available and obligated, the status bar at the top will automatically change to Approved. Once approved, the invoice details will need to be sent to the Financial Center for approval and payment. To send this invoice, let's select Pending Payment in the status bar. We can now receive an alert when payment has been sent to our grant recipient. The grantee, John, authenticates into the grantee portal to submit modifications to an existing award. This can all be accomplished through the portal, whereas before John was corresponding back and forth via email with his grant officer or filing lengthy paperwork. John wants to make changes to his existing award to request a period of performance extension and provide an updated indirect cost rate agreement. On the home page, he is easily able to identify his active awards and projects. Once on the award screen, John clicks on the Modification tab to initiate the award modification. Similar to the Grant Award Modification (GAM) for non-discretionary grants, John gets prepared to request a period of performance extension and provide an updated indirect cost rate agreement. John can now select from a list of items, and he or his grant officer can determine what documents need to be updated based on the type of modification. We have already demonstrated how these forms are filled out as part of Grant Award Modification for non-discretionary grants. For the purpose of this demonstration, we are going to skip the checklist component and focus on sections that pertain to requesting a period of performance extension and uploading the indirect cost rate agreement. The grant award modification process is seamless and guides John along the way during the submission process. Once the grant award modification is submitted, it will be routed to the respective grant officer, and John can see a record on the page, so he can track the status. Now we are going to pivot over to the grant officer to illustrate the grant award modification review process. The grant officer is notified of a new award modification. Peter, the grant officer, begins his review process, similar to the grant award modification review process for non-discretionary grants. Before he approves, Peter wants to review the details of the modification that John just submitted. On the Grant Award Modification page, Peter leverages an extensible toolkit that allows him to effectively perform his day-to-day activities with his awardees. The grant officer can have a side-by-side view of the grant award modification details along with the indirect cost rate agreement that John has uploaded. Once the grant officer has reviewed the details of the modifications, he is ready to approve. The approval process can range from simple to complex with multi-level approvers, rule-based criteria, external systems, and more. For the purpose of the demonstration, we are using the simple approach with the grant officer as the sole approver. Once approved, the status of the grant award modification will change to issue award agreement, and the grant officer can perform any final checks before initiating the e-signature for the award agreement. Our deep integration with third-party partners like e-signature provider DocuSign enables the grant officer to track the status of the signature through its full lifecycle. Once sent, John receives an email requesting his signature. Once John provides his signature, the grant officer will also receive an email to sign the award agreement. After the grant officer's signature, the system will automatically update the grant award modification record to resolved completed, and the electronically signed award agreement will be attached to the record. The DocuSign envelope status will show as completed. The grant officer can also publish the award modification information to USAspending.gov and other OMB repositories. John, our grantee, is back in the grantee portal, which serves as a one-stop shop for all of his post-award grant activities. On the project, the grantee begins with the required post-award activities by submitting a progress report. Salesforce's digital process automation tool gives grantees a guided path for completing a business process and serves as a configurable way to create a seamless grantee experience. Next, the grantee submits a digital version of the SF-425 form. Through the digital process automation tool, paper-based processes are digitized, allowing the agency to configure interactive business processes that are easy to use, yet have complex functionality occurring behind the scenes. Transitioning to the grant officer, Peter, he manages all the incoming data from his grantee here on the project record. First, the grant officer can determine the health of the program through KPIs by analyzing the grantee's performance measures on the top bar. As we draw our eyes over to the right, Peter is using an AI model to predict the likely success of the project. There are top contributors that he can see that are influencing his score, and he can easily identify actionable variables to improve the likelihood of success. On the left, we are using embedded analytics to provide a summary of the progress reports that have been submitted so far. We can see whether the scope and schedule are being reported as on track or behind. We can drill into the reports to see if there are underlying correlations. For example, the tasks behind schedule that are overburning their funding will need to be addressed urgently. Directly above my progress summary is a guided form to simplify the process of intaking and approving quarterly reports. On the first screen, Peter notices that 2 reports have just been submitted and need his review. Both the financial report and progress report need to be reviewed. During the financial review, we can gain more insight by navigating to the costs category report, which shows Peter how close we are getting to the limits on each budget category. We can use this to help evaluate if we are over, or in danger of going over, budget when compared to the project progress. Drilling down into the financial report, we now have access to all of the information required to make a final review and calculate award liability actual estimates. Here we are automatically estimating and recording the financial obligation that the agency has towards the grantee for costs the grantee has incurred but not yet billed to the grantor. Grant program officers can easily monitor and review lists of awards that are approaching the end of their periods of performance. Salesforce's automation capabilities can send reminders to recipients automatically based on the POP end date. It is even possible to auto-schedule multiple reminders leading up to the end date, according to the agency's preferences. Notifications and tasks can also be created to alert grant program staff. In either case, program staff are freed from manually conducting administrative tasks like monitoring end dates and sending notifications. Program staff can also send such notifications as ad hoc emails, exercising their ability to tailor the notification beyond the boilerplate content and recipients. Outbound emails become part of the award's activity history. From the grantee portal home screen, the grantee is notified that there are outstanding tasks that need to be completed. As the project winds down, the grantee is able to submit final progress and financial reports along with the final reimbursement requests. From the Award Command Center, the Program Manager is notified and verifies receipt of the progress and financial reports within the appropriate time frame. A funds availability check can be triggered at every step of the process to ensure prompt reimbursement once the request has been processed. Final progress and financial reports are marked as final, making it easy for the Program Manager to prepare for the award closeout. Salesforce simplifies the final steps of the closeout process through a digital experience powered by a no-code platform. First, the Program Manager conducts a final review of any outstanding final financial and progress reports to ensure compliance with the grant terms and conditions. Without ever leaving Salesforce, the Program Manager can approve the outstanding reports and ensure that all funds have been expended for the award and initiate final disbursements. During this period, any unspent funds must be returned to the federal agency. Once the award is closed, an official notification of the final package is generated and sent to the grantee, signifying the end of the grant project and the completion of all required closed-out procedures. It's easy to create a final closeout package that can be automatically submitted to OMB and stored to meet records retention requirements. This ensures that records are available for future audits, reviews, or investigations if necessary.